That report was never supposed to see the light of day. A sealed dossier, buried for over a decade in the frigid archives of Quantico, where time itself seemed deliberately to forget it. No title, no signature, no indication of who had drafted it, except for one faded line of ink stamped on the first page, Iron Wolf. For years, no one knew who that name belonged to, until the day it was unsealed, and silence suddenly gripped the entire room. If you believe, respect must be earned, not begged for. Stay. Because when that name echoes, everything changes. Dawn crept over the barracks of Fort Red Meridian like a band of cold steel, leaving a thin mist clinging to the training grounds, still scented with gunpowder from last night's drill. The first light brought no warmth, only the heavy silence of a place where discipline needed no reminder. It seeped into every fiber of the air, every grain of sand under soldiers' boots. And in that rigid space, one figure stood motionless near the flagpole, as if defying the world itself with her sheer composure. Sarah Walker, late 20s, freshly transferred from tactical medical. Her uniform crisp in every crease, her black boots gleaming with a slash of thin light like a blade. Posture ramrod straight, hands clasped behind her back, face calm to the point of near impassivity. But that stillness wasn't a sign of confidence, it was merely veiling the undercurrent surging around her. The other trainees began to appear on the grounds in twos and threes. Just a few initial glances were enough to shift the air. Some glanced and burst into laughter. Others cleared their throats as if to mask a snide remark. Half-veiled comments slithered through the wind like dull knives. A nurse in the command program. Huh. Must be a pity posting. Let's see how long she lasts. And before we continue with the main story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Okay. Oh, and don't forget to comment below, letting us know where you're watching us from. We love hearing that. Sarah heard it all. No reaction. No turning back. She stood like a milestone, letting each barb pierce without a tremor. It was her silence, it seemed, that irked them more than anything. At the edge of the grounds, Cadet Lieutenant Ryan Mercer appeared with his group of buddies. He was the type who exuded self-importance just by walking loose strides, shoulders thrust slightly forward, the lazy grin of someone who believed he was born for applause. Spotting Sarah, his gaze hitched for a beat, then an irritating amusement flared up fast as a spark on gasoline. Mercer approached, not bothering to hide the condescension in every step. When he was a few paces away, he stopped, arms crossed, head tilted slightly, as if appraising a misplaced object. Sarah held her stance, eyes fixed straight ahead, not acknowledging his presence with even the smallest motion. That reaction only fueled Mercer's enthusiasm. Without a word, he had the trainees behind him chuckling, waiting for the next humiliation. But Sarah gave him nothing. He wanted no embarrassment, no challenge, not a hint of faltering. After roll call, as everyone moved to the prep area for the obstacle course run, the snickers grew louder. Sarah marched steadily, movements precise to the point of disbelief for someone transferred from medical. She didn't blend into the crowd, nor did she lag behind, just proceeded as if carrying a mission no one else could see. At the corner of the grounds, another gaze tracked her more carefully than the rest. Private Lena Cole, new to the program not long, was the only one not laughing. She saw what the others deliberately ignored. Sarah's silence held none of a rookie's clumsiness. It was the silence forged by experience, by long nights in places where even breaths had to be half-held. Lena also noticed how Sarah checked her bootlaces, not bending down, just flicking her eyes over once, like the habit of someone who'd once had to watch every tiny angle around them to survive. That wasn't how a medic moved. That was how someone who'd walked through a battlefield moved. As the morning wore on, the taunts came steady as war drums. But Sarah never wavered once. She just stood, walked, observed, logging in her mind what others deemed meaningless, like the position of the far corner camera, the delay in the East Gate sensor, even the intervals between each drill whistle's blare. She didn't react, because she didn't need to. Only, none of them knew that silence was about to make the whole base take a step back, because the respect they refused her was about to be forced upon them, with interest. All right, dear audience of mine, if you're watching and finding this story intriguing, comment number 1 or comment, "I'm still here," to keep listening, okay? The afternoon dragged on with familiar drills, climbing wooden walls, hauling heavy ropes, basic weapons handling. But in the locker room at the end of the north corridor, the air took on a color far from the training's gravity. The clang of metal on lockers, the thud of boots kicked off by toes, laughter erupting as if everyone was feeling exhaustion by poking at a shared target. Ryan Mercer lounged against the wooden bench, posture relaxed but eyes alight with that familiar smug gleam. The other trainees clustered around him, eager for the morning's unfinished tale. Mercer recounted his encounter with Sarah, embellishing details on purpose, framing her silence as the punchline for collective laughs. In the corner, a few rookies mimicked adjusting their collars. Others aped Sarah's rigid stance like a clumsy act. The laughter spread wide, raucous enough to drown the wind whistling through door cracks. Yet just one wall away, in the women's locker room, the noise arrived only as distant echoes. Here, Sarah sat on an old metal chair, hair tied back tight, movements so composed it was hard to tell where true feeling began. She unfastened each armor plate from her vest, setting them down in exact order, each piece precise as a rhythm learned years ago. No face sharpened in her gaze. No expression betrayed hurt or anger. Just an oddly serene focus, the kind of focus from someone too accustomed to the noise of those who'd never borne responsibility for anything more vital than their own ego. Lena Coles stood a few paces off, as if searching for words, but afraid to shatter the quiet. She watched Sarah closer than anyone on base. She saw how Sarah folded her uniform. Not just neat, but precise to the millimeter, as if each crease could decide someone's fate. When Sarah opened her locker to stow the vest, a small scrap of fabric, frayed at the edges and faded, slipped unexpectedly to the floor. Lena snatched it up quick, before anyone else could notice. 3 letters embroidered in black thread, nearly eroded by time. She stared at them, heart skipping a beat. That name, not overly familiar to young trainees, but she'd caught whispers of it in an old news clip about an unconfirmed op. She slipped it back into Sarah's hand. No questions, no comments. Sarah took the scrap, tucked it into her jacket pocket, and locked it away, a light but final motion, like sealing a piece of past she never meant for others to touch. Meanwhile, the men's room laughter rolled over in waves, clear enough to catch the clumsy imitations, the bitter jabs aimed at someone they deemed out of place. Lena glanced toward the noise, then back to Sarah. The contrast was stark. They were loud, boisterous, proud of an imagined superiority. She was silent, but that silence held something that made others wary. When Sarah finished changing, she shut her locker with a motion so light it barely made a sound. She rose, straightened her collar, and slipped from the room like a shadow, her boots silent to avoid needless notice. In a brief moment, Lena caught her eye. No words, but in that look was a deep wariness, as if Sarah were measuring everything around her, memorizing every small detail. Outside the window, the sky tipped toward gray. Wind battered the flag on the training grounds, making a heavy flap like an early warning everyone ignored. Sarah walked the long corridor, steps even, unhurried, undistracted. The talk behind her continued, but she was no longer there to hear it. What no one on base knew, her silence wasn't endurance. It was observation. And observation, for people like Sarah Walker, was always the first step before everything shifted in ways no one expected. All right, dear audience of mine, if you're watching and finding this story intriguing, comment number 1 or comment, "I'm still here to keep listening." Okay. Day 10 of the training cycle passed with routine drills, but something was off in the air at Fort Red Meridian, a thin motion like mist, but enough to make the most sensitive pause. Sarah sensed it first, not with senses, but with the instinct that had saved her in shattered outposts where time and peril blurred into one. Morning PT kicked off with a long run along the west fence line. Mercer led the pack, still flaunting that casual bravado, as if every stride sent a message that he was born for this. Giggles trailing him sharpened the arrogance. Passing Sarah, a few trainees deliberately surged ahead, tossing petty jabs like dust. Also, Kanansu, any two. Sarah didn't reply. She kept her breath steady, eyes skimming the metal trim running parallel above the yard, glossy surface, reflecting morning sun. But there, an anomaly, a small flash, flickering less than 2 seconds, like a signal from a camera that hitched. No one noticed, but Sarah did. In that instant, her eyes narrowed a fraction, then turned away as if nothing differed. But that subtle shift didn't escape the nearest watcher, Lena Cole. She didn't grasp it all, but she caught the special focus Sarah gave things beyond training bounds. Things normals overlooked, assuming they still worked fine. Post-run, the afternoon stretched like any other, but inside Sarah, every second was dissected. Each camera, each sensor pole, each system ping. By evening, as trainees gathered at the mess, she walked the base perimeter alone. Gravel crunching under boots, space lit by pole-mounted lamps casting pale gold. She halted right where the camera had flickered, stood still a few seconds, eyes up, checking the device's tilt. Nothing changed. But Sarah knew that 1.7-second glitch wasn't random. Too precise, too brief, too clean. From her jacket pocket, she pulled an old notebook with worn cover, pages frayed by years, the last sheets smudged with pencil marks, symbols, coordinates, tiny arrows pointing to spots she'd noted over a week plus. She added a short line, pen moving swift but neat, as if this ritual had repeated hundreds of times in ops, allowing no margin for error. As she snapped, the notebook shut and walked on. Wind carried conversation snippets, but they dissolved in her focus. Tonight the base felt tighter, as if something stirred just behind the concrete walls. Meanwhile, in the strategy room, dozens of trainees settled in, murmurs weaving under white lights. Mercer, as usual, claimed the front row, legs crossed, tossing arrogant glances rearward. Now and then, the briefing started normal, until the projector screen blacked out, then flared back with a frozen frame. A strange tone pinged from the instructor's console, dry, mechanical, not from any approved program. A line appeared. No auth code, no system specs, authorization restricted. Aaron Wolf Channel EIN. The room froze. The instructor frowned, trying to override, but the system ignored. Other screens locked one by one, and right then, on Sarah's tablet at the back row, hers buzzed. She glanced down. No sender, no subject, just 4 stark words: Aaron Wolf, wait. Her pulse dipped, then raced. Lena, offset a row up, caught the text's reflection by chance. Panic flashed on her face, then snapped to utter silence. Both knew, though, in very different ways that this wasn't a glitch. It was a signal, and it had found its mark. Are you still here, dear audience of mine? Pause and relax a bit. Maybe grab a glass of water, then tune back in for the gripping content. Okay. Comment number 1. If you find this story intriguing, don't forget to hit subscribe to the channel. Yeah. Over 200 miles from Fort Red Meridian, in an ops center shielded by 3 layers of security and 2 rings of biometric scans, red characters cascaded down the main screen like electronic rain. Colonel Jonathan Reddick hunched over reports when the final alert lit a lone line, cold as a blade at the viewer's nape. Aaron Wolf protocol reactivated. He froze seconds, shoulders tensing in reflex from a man who'd seen this order once and never wanted to again. No explanations needed. Reddick snatched his cap, exited with the clipped stride of one, knowing it was too late to halt fate's wheel. Next morning, Fort Red Meridian carried an unease hard to name. Casual chats turned distracted. Laughter the rookies' morale glue now just shards and hesitations. Everyone felt last night's glitch wasn't a prank, but none had words deep enough to voice it. Except Mercer. He still leaned on the lectern like the invincible, fiddling training docs with customary disdain. When a few rookies mentioned the weird signal from strategy, Mercer smirked, dropping a half-muttered barb, as if his mere presence trivialized all doubts. At the rear, Sarah sat still, her tablet powered off before entering, screen blank as unruffled water. But her hands, light on her knees, clenched to the ceiling light's flicker. Subtle sign. But to Lena, glancing back from ahead, it screamed Sarah's calm had cracked. Then lights stuttered once. Again. And the whole hall plunged dark for 7 seconds, stretching like a minute. Lights snapped back. Eyes locked on the central panel. No alert. No error code. Just glaring white text, blinking like the system's own breath. Calling someone. Call Reddick. That instant, footsteps echoed from hall's end, heavy, steady, like drums heralding irreversible change. Double doors burst, and Colonel Jonathan Reddick entered. He didn't speak at once. The silence he brought smothered the room heavier than any command bark. As his gaze swept each face, every rumor, every prior mockery shrank in trainees' throats. Then that gaze halted. On Sarah. No leisure, no pause. Reddick stepped forward, voice dropping low, edged sharp as battlefield order. Iron Wolf. On your feet. The words tore the air like a shell in a sealed space. Sarah rose. No chair scrape, no extra motion. The whole batch stared as if seeing her for the first time. Reddick advanced a step. Tone less steel but no softer. Welcome back. No one grasped those 2 words' full weight. But all knew, from this moment, Sarah Walker was no name for jests. And Fort Red Meridian was no place for games. The room held absolute silence right after Colonel Reddick's greeting, as if the air itself tried contracting to spare any needless sound. All eyes pinned on Sarah, who stood like a marker in the storm's eye, and on the man who'd named her, what none dared before. Reddick lifted his chin, gaze sweeping from front row to rear. He didn't yell, but the room's breaths hitched to his voice's gravity, an authority that needed no show. He spoke of the mission 7 years back, not in storyteller's tone, but a survivor's, crediting intervention from one they thought a transferred medic. Mentioning Blackstone Ravine, older trainees exchanged fleeting looks, as if an unreported incident's memory stirred. He described that sunless night when 14 Marines trapped deep in the ravine's gut, comms severed, entire rescue force forced to pull back. And when all deemed the op failed, a 4-man team plunged straight into the kill zone. No air cover. That team was led by the call sign Iron Wolf. No one breathed. A few straightened instinctively. bodies adjusting to truth's heft. Mercer, the loudest, hours prior, sat rigid. The arrogance that clung like a coat vanished, leaving raw confusion etched plain. Reddick's voice lowered on his team's near-miss escape. He didn't detail how Sarah saved them, those locked-in codes heavier than training tales could hold. But his look at Sarah told all. She didn't just complete. She brought them home when the world wrote them off. A murmur rustled from the back, dissolving fast as Reddick's knife gaze wheeled on them. He turned to Mercer. No hate, no rage, just disappointment honed by years. Mercer tried words, voice quavering, as if suddenly seeing the chasm twixt real knowing and his hubris. I didn't know, he managed. But it broke as Reddick tilted his head. That's the problem. One line, but enough to erase all excuses. No more words came, just boots shifting in sync as a back road trainee bolted up, saluting with perfect crispness. A beat later, another rose, then one more. In moments, the whole room, near 100 souls, stood ramrod, backs steel stiff, hands snapping up in flawless rhythm like a veteran unit. They weren't saluting Reddick. They saluted Sarah. In the dim light, Sarah stood unmoving, but something shifted in her bearing, as if the invisible armor she'd worn cracked open, revealing the human who'd shouldered decisions none here could fathom. Reddick stepped close, but just near enough for words meant only for her. A few short, waited, forcing her eyes to what awaited. They've seen what they needed to. But from here, it's not about them anymore. Sarah's fist tightened faintly, eyes dipping a beat, then rising slow. No protest, no query, just acknowledgement that the next wave crashed in, and it dwarfed the cheap laughs of day one. Are you still here, dear audience of mine? Pause and relax a bit. Maybe grab a glass of water, then tune back in for the gripping content. Okay, comment number 1 if you find this story intriguing. Don't forget to hit subscribe to the channel. Yeah. Night fell on Fort Red Meridian in a thin, steady chill rain, sheeting roofs, metal beams, window panes like it aimed to wash away the afternoon's lingering strain. In the small room at the rookie's quarters, Sarah perched bed's edge, pale blue glow from the cipher pad washing her face. The screen showed no system data, no reports, just 4 stark words, blazing like a call from an old abyss she'd thought left years back. Iron Wolf standby. Her pulse slipped a beat. Not fear, but memory. Tattered manuals, stone walls, ultra-black orders few had glimpsed. Reddick was right. What approached? Tied to no taunts, no base. It came for her. An alarm klaxon pierced sudden, shrill and raw, slashing night rain like iced steel. Window glass shivered as security flipped red. From the hall, boots pounded floors. Urgent calls swelled to chaos wave. Breach detected. West perimeter. Classification. Internal intrusion. Sarah was up before the third alert finished. Hand already on the locker pistol, motion flawless, silent. Door flew open, and the surge hit the corridor. Hot metal scent from fire systems, mixed with rain damp. A stifling air only vets of real heat didn't reel from. In the strategy hall, Reddick commanded chaos's heart. Screens blazed base schematics and pulsing red alerts, spreading from west building to underground maintenance. His orders clipped, no yells, but each pierced like AP rounds. Lock Alpha Gate, block south access, isolate arms depot. A young officer, face ashen, approached with trembling tablet. Reddick scanned, then halted dead. No external breach. Internal sensors tripped. The intruder was already inside the base. Air congealed. Reddick turned, gaze locking Sarah as if he'd foreseen the answer. Just a faint nod. South wing. Hold Lena Cole back. Move. Sarah bolted the hall. Lena, fresh from women's quarters, tailed tight, her frame slight, but pace held. They veered dark halls, emergency strobes, casting red streaks on floors. Dust and hot metal choked each breath. At the final junction, Sarah halted sharp. A vent grate, arm width, freshly jostled. Screw still rolling floorward. No accident. No shake from alarm. That was experienced passage. A faint sound rose behind. Not wind. Not roof rain drip. Boot scuff soft on tile. Sarah wheeled in half a second, pistol rising as Hall's weak light hit the figure emerging from shadow. Black fatigues, no insignia, half mask, suppressed weapon gear never seen in training bases. He didn't bolt instant. Paused just long for Sarah to read cold intent behind the mask's eyes. Then he lunged. The long hall turned racetrack in a blink. Lena panted close, breaths ragged. Sarah surged straight line. No hesitation by a fraction. Maintenance sublevel near pitch black, save stuttering bulbs. And there, amid dense electrical cabinets, Sarah spotted the odd device clamped to the main board. Green LED blinking steady. Clean, too clean for foreign tech. She yanked it free, flipping it in palm. Build. Etchings. Connectors. U.S. Military. Not planted by outsiders. Someone inside had paved the way. As the klaxon faded to drips, only rain pattered tin roofs. No casualties. No arms taken. No data leaked. But the marker left was plain. They didn't come to destroy. They came to test base response and gauge hers. A trial, and it had only just begun. Next dawn brought no warm light. Just a cooled ash smear over Fort Red Meridian. Rain stopped, but damp clung every surface, mingling with the pall over the base. Dozens of trainees ghosted halls silent, each feigning normalcy. But intrusion's echo laced every step with nameless hesitation. In strategy, Reddick loomed over the main console, hands on chill steel edge. Last night's sensor footage rewound countless times. Each motion, each blind spot etched in his mind. Sarah set the retrieved device from maintenance on the table. Metal's light clink rang the dead room like a voiceless question mark. Device small, sleek, no foreign stamps. Standard mil-spec alloy connectors. Core with EMP shielding tech from Spec Ops black missions only. Sarah eyed it long. Gaze no anger. No confusion, just focus scarred by foreknowledge. Not sabotage, she murmured. They wanted reaction time. How long till detection? Who would show? Reddick caught the unspoken end. He hadn't just tested the base. He'd confirmed, if Iron Wolf truly lingered. Corner leaning, Mercer against wall, eyes stripped of usual bite. No summons for him, but he'd come. Posture like one forced to face a self-version he'd denied. He watched Sarah not with scorn, but clear realization he'd misjudged the base's sole knower of the unfolding. I don't get it, Mercer whispered, near inaudible. Sarah tilted head slight, not full turn, but enough he knew she'd heard. Now you do. No blame. No score. Just fact. Sky grayed deeper as they stepped out. On grounds, flags sodden rain, fabric sagging heavy. Rookies' footfalls droned slow, mute. No more careless laughs. Just silence freighted with questions dwarfing last night's breach. Who let him in? And why? Sarah under eaves, gazed distant through horizon mist. Notebook symbols ghosted her lids on each blink. Anomalous flickers, intruders' paths, alarm lags, cameras with odd sweeps, all pieced to a hazy but familiar shape. A summons, a probe, an unseen hand testing if Iron Wolf stayed sharp, and if she'd dare re-enter the dark she'd fled years prior. Wind tugged her coat flap light. Sarah stood fixed, as if awaiting signal. None knew her mind's churn, but Lena steps away sensed what others missed. Sarah didn't tremble. She listened. Reddick approached, halting beside Sand's words. They both eyed the gray void ahead, clouds dragging like sky scars. A truth plainer than the breach took form. The enemy stood not at gates. The enemy nested in their ranks. And someone out there demanded Iron Wolf rise again. Sarah exhaled, breath's white wisp dissolving chill air. She wasn't at Fort Red Meridian to fit in. Not to prove herself. Not for approval. She was here to lead and face the encroaching shadow. Again, as Iron Wolf. That night's rain passed, but its echo lingered on walls, panes, like reminder Fort Red Meridian had turned a page. Sarah alone under eaves. Day's faint light gilding her face gold dim. Stance mighty yet solitary. In hand, the cipher pad's last line lingered unquenched, like a quiet pulse. Iron Wolf active. She knew it unfinished. Reddick knew. The base felt the shadow shifting under hush, as if someone bided perfect moment to rouse what they thought buried. But now, Sarah hid no more behind medic garb, no more gossip fodder. She'd claimed her place not by their respect, but forcing their sight to truth. And that truth, Iron Wolf endured. She dipped chin faint, cipher grip tight. What loomed ahead no easy path, but she'd never picked easy. Questions on the intruder, his enabler, why her recall, all awaited answers. Perhaps the mission she'd deemed closed, perhaps the foe she'd believed gone, or perhaps a whole new chapter for which she'd scarce prepped. If you want to know what happens when Iron Wolf faces the true dark waiting beyond the horizon, drop a comment, hit like, share this video. Tell me what you want in part 2. This story has only just begun.